Greetings and salutations. I am your host, Pat626. You can normally catch me hosting Subculture Shock on Sunday nights. And for, many months now, I have had the pleasure of spinning music from the great MATT HART, whose latest album is really just industrial at its finest, especially if you like a dance club. But before I get to my guest, I do want to thank EBM Worldwide for sponsoring this interview tonight. If you're not familiar with them, just a reminder that EBM Worldwide is a partnership of DJs, fans, promoters, and producers who meet together to support the scene, charity, LGBTQIA+, animal welfare, and other causes. So you can even join the EBM Worldwide Discord. For more information, just go to facebook.com/EBM Worldwide. And I think I've made you sit through enough. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you very much. It's very, very early in the morning here in London, UK, but I'm doing okay. I'm awake just about. I had a bit of a snooze, but I'm ready to go.
You know what? You get that subculture talk nap, and then you're set. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show, especially for those of you that want a little behind the scenes thing. I've actually been trying to get Matt on the show since it started back in March, and he's been trying to get on, and our schedules just never connected until now. So we are lucky beings. Matt, how I like to start things off here on Subculture Talk is asking for what I call the supervillain origin story. So you make some dark, crunchy music, but before you were making it, you were listening to it. How did you get into this genre of music to begin with?
Okay, we're going to go far, far back in time to a time when I was probably about 15 years old. The junior heart, Matthew Jr., was listening to a lot of drum and bass and happy hardcore, trying to keep up with the cool kids at school, and it wasn't a bad crowd, but I guess I kind of fell in with them, and I was listening to the music that they were listening to, and really at the end of the day I wasn't that interested. It was just because I wanted to hang out with the cool kids at the school, but I was always hanging out with a really good friend of mine, and he lent me a copy of a Remanufacture by Fear Factory. Great record, and because it had dancey beats to it, which I think was why he was kind of, great for him at 15, 16, trying to influence me in a taste of music. And he, so I said to him, like, okay, this is a remix album apparently, and what does the original album sound like? And so he gave me a copy of Demanufacture, and it's all been uphill ever since then. I love the album, I love the record. I've probably Fear Factory, one of the bands I've seen probably more than anything else. I would probably say more than anyone else. Yes. Possibly Three Teeth I may well have seen a few more times than Fear Factory, just because they happen to have toured.
I won't tell Fear Factory if you won't.
I will not tell them.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to them coming back with a new tour and a new band and that kind of thing at some point hopefully soon, maybe next year. Anyway, going back to the history, so listening to Fear Factory, I got into metal and new metal as it was in kind of late 90s, early 2000s, and I was then listening to a lot of kind of trying to find what I could for guitar-driven music that had electronics in it, because I still love the layers of electronics that Fear Factory had, and I guess I kind of fell on industrial through bands like Rammstein, Rob Zombie, obviously Fear Factory as well, and then I'd been out in London. I started kind of partying in London in the early 2000s, and went to a Fear Factory concert. Met someone there, and they said, "Oh, you should check out this band Skinny Puppy." I was like, "Okay, I'll check them out."
And the world
Anyway,
was never the
the
same.
world was never the same, exactly. And so I went along to the show in London. And my mind was blown from just like the kind of the visceralness of the live show. But at the time, I'd only been listening to Greater Wrong of the Right, so I really hadn't listened to much else other than that. So I kind of did a deep dive into them and listened to everything from the very beginning all the way through. Bits and pieces I really liked. Bits and pieces it was maybe too avant-garde for me at the time. But anyway, then I started going kind of clubbing. I was doing a lot of like rock clubbing because I thought that was the only club that you could go to, was like the rock and metal clubs of London. And then a very good friend who is now my wife introduced me to a club called Slimelight in London. And again, it hasn't been the same ever since. Bands, I guess, kind of bands like Hosico, Grendel, Combi Christ.
No wonder you married her.
Well, exactly, right? And just the pounding beats of that music was the clubbing that I guess I was missing, but it still had that really kind of gritty edge to it. It was almost like I always said, like, Combi Christ should add guitars to their music, because then it would be like industrial metal. And then they did, and I don't think they've been the same since. But I did like that original sound of Combi Christ. Anyway, less about them. But listening, so kind of early Fear Factory through new metal into kind of harsh industrial agrotech, and then just a wide-ranging view of electronic music, really. And I guess, have I waffled enough on that one?
No, that's good.
The origins of the music that I write, I guess, came from kind of those sounds and those bands, and the influence of kind of clubbing and DJing eventually as well.
So then let's expand on that. How did you transform from listening to this music, from discovering this sort of stuff and realizing, oh, this is exactly what I've been looking for? How did you go from listening to it and clubbing with it to making it?
So I'd been dabbling in excuse me, it's 2 a.m. and my eyes are a bit stingy and I've got bags under my eyes. But sorry. So I guess I'd been dabbling. I got a little MacBook, a white one. Do you remember the white ones?
Uh-huh.
The first kind of new look Apple MacBooks. If they were even called iBook, was it Mac iBook or something? I don't know.
I have never been a big fan of Mac products, honestly.
Yeah,
so
no, fair enough.
You can just call it whatever you want, and I'll believe that that's what it was called.
The white one.
The white one. All right.
The
so
white one.
You bought a
from
Macintosh, the white one.
Exactly, it's like 2004 maybe. Anyway, so I had GarageBand on it, and I started dabbling in sounds. It had its own kind of sound libraries and that kind of thing. And I got a little guitar. I got a little guitar input sound device, and I started kind of writing riffs and trying to find drums that worked well. And I literally, to this day, I've never found a drum that I really, really like. It is exactly what I want. But you keep working on your craft. Anyway, back then I was like no interest in releasing it, and I did it for fun. I was playing a little bit of guitar. I was writing drum patterns and string pads and this kind of thing. So for about I guess for about 10 years I was just dabbling for a lot of fun. But nothing too serious. And as I went through, I upgraded my Mac as I went, and Mac upgraded the products I was using. So I now use Logic, and I guess I'd always wanted to try and make the music I was writing sound like Fear Factory. Like it was almost like I kind of wanted it to be a clone of Fear Factory, but maybe a little more electronic. And I got into, I was playing in a metal band called Havoc System.
That's a good metal name.
Yeah, it was like, this is Havoc System. It was kind of metalcore, melodic death metal-ish, and I was playing bass in the band, and our drummer couldn't make a show, so it's kind of our drummer couldn't make a show. So I said, look, I'm into this kind of sound of music where, why do you need a drummer? Put electronic drums on it and, all good. So I programmed it's like a half-hour set. I programmed the whole set of just the drums. It was about 25-minute set. Programmed the whole set of drums. They were very basic, like kind of metal drum sounds.
Right.
But they worked with the tracks that we were playing. So we didn't have a drummer, and we actually, as a metal band, we played without a drummer. And I loved this. Like, there was 4 of us on stage. There was no drummer, and we were just like going nuts for it. How
did the metal crowd react to it?
To be fair, it was a small little kind of pub club show, and there was probably maybe 20, 30, maybe 40 people there for us.
Uh-huh.
And certainly the people that came out to see us was like, this is something different. This is kind of cool.
I don't know what it is, but I think I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And no one said, "Oh, it's not metal without the drums." It was very encouraging. We were just trying to get by. Even our vocalist said on the mic, sorry, our drummer couldn't make it, so Matt programmed the drums, and here we are doing what we're doing. Subsequently, I then played guitar and bass in an industrial band called Concrete Lung. Concrete Lung was a project that was never meant to have drums anyway, which was quite cool because it was just the guitarist / vocalist and a keyboard player, and I kind of went, do you want a guitarist to play and you can just do vocals? So it was 3 of us, and I get around to the point of why I'm making music in a minute.
No, this is good because I'm getting so many more questions out of this. Keep going.
Cool. So I was kind of a fan of this band, Concrete Lung, before I got into them. I mean, they had a Godflesh sound. They certainly had a Ministry Skinny Puppy sound to them. So very electronic, very industrial. I was a big fan of them. Anyway, I got into the band. I was playing guitar. The vocalist ended up going back to Australia, and he kind of pulled the pin on the band in the UK around about 2011, 2012, I think. But we had a great time playing together, and we played some pretty awesome shows. So I dipped my toes into the industrial scene as far as a live musician in London as well. So that was the metal band into the industrial band, and then I wasn't playing in a band. So I was like, I've kind of been writing stuff. I kind of enjoy writing stuff. Why don't I try and take this a little more seriously? Okay.
Well, you've already been doing this for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like really dabbling, like. I wasn't mixing. I didn't know what mixing was. I didn't know what mastering was. I was just like, okay, it sounds good. I'm gonna, put another layer on it and put another layer on it. So it was very, very basic. Anyway, so then I kind of started. I guess, do I want to say that was around the time that YouTube kind of began to kind of become a bit bigger in terms of people just using it as a tool for learning. So anyway, I kind of started trying to get a little bit better at mixing and sounds and this kind of thing.
So just looking at YouTube tutorials and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Learning the programs, learning how, learning the different disciplines of writing and making music. I started going to some Apple masterclasses on Logic and mastering and mixing and this kind of thing, which is really cool actually in like the Apple store. So I was kind of learning a lot, trying to take on a lot. Obviously full-time job as well, so it's not like music has ever been the creative side of my music has ever been a career as such. It's just what I do and enjoy.
I think I can name on like one hand the number of acts in this scene that don't have a day job.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a scene we can make a living doing, that certainly. For most of us. Um, and yeah, so it kind of 2012 forward, and it was around about that time I started DJing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Side point, and maybe you can come back to that one if I remember to come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the creative process, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to start? Like, do I want to release something? Do I want to do something? And I kind of hadn't really got any idea of promotion and marketing or anything. Okay, well, I'm going to write a 5-track EP. Finally, it took me probably about 3 years of kind of crafting what I was doing, in a bad way, to be honest. And I think it was around about 2016, 15, 16, I think, where I went. Have I got it here? Oh yeah. So I released this.
Oh,
This was not even
classic.
like, not even, Bandcamp wasn't out really a big thing back in those days. 4-track EP. I'd already planned. Look how forward thinking I was. I was thinking, oh look, I'll make 100 of them, like pressing my own CDs with paper onto the CD and printing out the
Hey,
cartridge.
I did the
Printing.
same thing, and those things are glorious.
It's great. I mean,
That is one of the things I miss now that we're in the digital age. I miss the handmade CDs.
yeah, the DIY.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that was the first kind of CD that I did, and I think I made maybe 15, 20 copies and just gave them to mates. Is this any good? Do you like it? Play it. But it wasn't. I'm not going to make any money from this. This is literally just go and
You
enjoy
were a
this.
little ambitious of that 6 out of 100 thing, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Very ambitious. um, uh, and and I guess then, I had a lot of other tracks in the background at that time, but they spanned like so many different genres that I was like, how can I even do this? I want to hone in on one specific sound. I want it to be industrial metal and blah blah blah, but for a club floor, a dance floor, and I had so many ideas of what I wanted it to be and do, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I was
Well, it
anyway,
sounds like you started in what I like to call the throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks phase.
yeah, oh,
And
definitely,
yeah, and from there now you're like, okay, so now what do I do with this, and how do I hone this in?
yeah, definitely. And I had, I think it was, probably 3 or 4 like instrumental tracks that were, like orchestrally instrumental, that were kind of almost like film score stuff. And then I had, and this is after this
Mhm.
CD. I kind of was into more kind of a little bit of techno-y kind of stuff as well. So I was writing like 4 to the floor beat stuff with no guitars. And then I was adding vocals to some stuff, and it's all haywire. And I'll be honest with you, that's still my creative process. It's
Well,
still completely haywire.
I,
Like,
I I love it because it's like, yes, I want to make industrial metal, and then your brain churns out all of this other stuff too, and you're like, no, 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 I just can I have some more industrial metal, please? And brain's like, no, write a techno song.
yeah,
All
exactly,
right, now
exactly.
write a soundtrack for a fantasy film that will never be made. Let's go.
Oh, totally, totally. So I had these, I think it's 13 tracks, um, that I went, okay. So just prior to this, I was talking to JD, from Grendel.
Uh huh.
He was living in London at the time. We were hanging out in a little pub called the Black Heart, in
Just
Camden.
hanging out in a pub with Grendel. That's cool.
Yeah, no, he was living in London, living with a good friend of mine, and we were just hanging out. And I said to him, like, we were talking about music and releasing, and I owe a lot to him really for why my music is out there on Bandcamp, is out there on Spotify, is out there on iTunes, and all this kind of stuff. Because he said to me, look, if you want to release something, just do it. Because I guess I was afraid of really putting my music out there to to the world. And I could give CDs to mates and they'll go, yeah, it's awesome, but the kind of the validation of going, here is my music, here, putting it to the world, are people going to buy it, are people going to like it? Side note, I had my Facebook profile, my Facebook page was already, I mean, it's still the acronym is, it's still, acronym's not the right word, the the name of the DJ page is still, the name of my Facebook page is still DJ Matt Hart UK.
Right.
Because I created my DJ page when I started DJing in about 2012, 2013. So I'd already built a kind of a DJ following, and I'd already built a Mixcloud following as well. And I think maybe I had Twitter at the time. Twitter's never been a huge thing, but I really like it. And so I, going back, where am I? Talking to Joss from Grendel.
Okay.
He said, just put it out there. And this is what I did. I put together 13 tracks, I think it was, because I got to be edgy and put 13 tracks out.
Of course.
On an album called The Anthology of Corrosion. I put it out on matthart.bandcamp.com. Plug. And
you saved me a question later. Good.
yeah, there's one of them. So I put out this album, Anthology of Corrosion. There was no CDs. It was never going to be like a physical release. It was a cathartic release of, here is everything else that I've done, apart from the music on that was actually, some of the tracks were rewritten, and the Feed the Seer and Better World is on that. Yeah, that's fine. And I put it out on Bandcamp and went, bleh. There it is. Literally, there it is. Okay. I had no intent, no like worries about people buying it or streaming it or whatever. I did a little bit of promotion for it myself. I gave it an edgy kind of 9 Inch Nails look to the cover, all totally DIY digital cover.
That's so beautiful though, because you spent years working on this 4-track EP, and then you spend all of this extra time and effort trying to come up with the next thing, to the point to where you're almost grounding yourself into a nub in the process. And so finally you're like, all right, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And that's great. I feel like that's the way it should be done, to just go, fuck it, here's the music. Yeah,
totally. And if you listen to Anthology Corrosion, the last, I think it's the last 4 tracks on it, they're all instrumental, and they were actually really, really well produced. Like a good friend of mine produced them, like mixed them and mastered them, and they sound just like tight, but it's like they are instrumental kind of film score stuff. It's never the kind of music that I'm going to write and play in a club. So from there, I got rid of that and went, okay, what is the process? What am I going to do? Because I got rid of all the music that I had to release. So now I've got like nothing to release. So what do I do? That was so I released the Anthology of Corrosion on, I think it was like 10th of January, very early in January 2017. And then I said, okay, I'm going to give myself, I don't think it was like 3 months. I'm going to write 5 tracks in 3 months, and this is all going to sound the same. It's all going to be very industrial metal sounding music. It's all going to have vocals on, and he digs it out from the.
I love that you came with visual aids.
Oh yeah, you got to do it.
No, this is great.
Hashtag thanks Slither 3808. So then I put out the first Chaos Rising record, Chaos Rising EP, and it had 5 tracks on it. Lies. It had 8 tracks on it, but 2 of the tracks, I've actually skipped one. So I then put out after.
It's okay.
This is what happens when I waffle, because I forget things.
No, it's okay.
so Anthology of Corrosion came out. Then I released, I think it was like literally 3 months later, the Judge and Punish EP, which had Judgment Requiem on it and Punishment Contract. 2 tracks that were vastly um, different from what the Anthology of Corrosion stuff was, but they were the first kind of, this is the direction I'm going to go. It's heavy, it's industrial, it's got guitars in it.
So you were finally kind of finding your voice.
Exactly.
And then this next release is when you took that voice and you really did a lot more with it.
Yes. Yeah. So Judge and Punish was a 2-track EP that I put out on Bandcamp, going, this is the beginning. This is a 2-track EP, because I didn't know whether albums were going to work, EPs were going to work, how quickly I was going to be able to write new music and this kind of thing. So I was like, 2 tracks, here we go. This is where it begins. This is the new music. This is Matt Hart as you hear it now, basically.
Right.
But things evolve, as they do. And so I wanted to put out a CD, but I wanted to write 5 new tracks, call it a new EP. It was going to be Chaos Rising. It's going to have 5 tracks on it, but I'm going to include Judge and Punish on the CD, and I'm going to rewrite or remix in my own way Feed the Seer. Feed the Seer has become one of the staples in my live act, which is usually open with a little bit of intro. It usually opens the set because it's stomping, it's repeating the same lyrics. It's very industrial. It's kind of like, wake up, get up. This is what this set's going to be all about. So I released Chaos Rising 1, looking all beautiful as it is there. Artwork by Vlad McNeely.
Oh, dude, I love Vlad.
Yeah, so he has done all the artwork from this record onwards.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. And
I see that you really developed the Matt Hart logo there too.
Yeah, well, he created that logo.
Okay.
So that's the logo that I now use. It looks a bit more eroded because I think it needed to erode after the Chaos Rising records. Right. As a little change, but
so I'm actually going to stop you there because I've been pondering this.
Yeah, go ahead.
While we go into this, so you started off in metal bands and a metal industrial band that had some like very very expected names for the genre, you know, like Concrete. What was that? Concrete
Lung.
Oh, what an industrial name. Concrete Lung. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what made you decide? Was it just because you already had the following with DJ Matt Hart, or what made you decide to just go with your name?
I think partly it was to do with the fact that I already had the DJ name, DJ Matt Hart, and the Facebook page that had followers on it already. And as much as, you know, I may have had 500-600 followers, there was probably, you know, 10 or 20 that kept in regular contact. And I kind of put out the question at the time, if I was to put more music out through this page, would you be okay with that? And there was a lot of positive, you know, along the lines, yeah, you know, creativity is great, you know, your music's great, we like it anyway, so, you know, why not? So they were happy with me putting the music out through the page. I could have changed the name of the page, but I guess it was almost at that point that I now recognize I created the brand of what I am. You know, Matt Hart being my name is also a brand. You know, it's my DJ name, it's my music name, it's my Bandcamp. I have, you know, all the social media is Matt Hart, and I think I couldn't really go away and change anything. It just had to be that, and I was quite happy with it being that. And I knew that there was bands out there that had, you know, their own name as the name of the band. An industrial artist in the UK called Jace Lewis, and I was kind of I liking what he did, and he went by his own name. Subsequently, he changed his name to a band name, Protofield, and subsequently went back to calling his band Jace Lewis. I don't know why that happened. Maybe just, you know, people liked the name Jace Lewis, and it's a band name, and I think there was a black metal band called Abigail Williams. I was like,
Hmm.
where did this name come from? They write such heavy black metal. There's no women in the band. Like, why would you call a name of the band like that? And I think I read about it at the time, but I have no clue what, and don't remember why it was. But it's just a name, you know. And yes, it was Abigail Williams in a very black metal kind of look. And I thought, well, I like industrial music. I like the kind of look. And what Vlad did was create a logo in my name. So yes, it's not completely black metal where you don't understand what it is, but it takes a little bit of deciphering to kind of understand what it is if you see just the
Yeah,
logo and
if
you
you
don't
just
know the
saw
name.
that, who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I'm gonna dig into this just a little bit further because
Yeah, go ahead.
most of the artists that I've interviewed on this show, even if it's just one person, they still have a band name.
Hmm.
Um, but I like this idea of creating yourself as a brand. Do you find that at this point, like the Matt Hart brand and the Matt Hart person are one and the same, or is there ever any divergence between those things?
I honestly, I think that Matt Hart is my name, and yes, it's the brand, but it's just what I do. So whatever I spit out has my name attached to it. Um, so the early DJing, well, the DJing that I do as a DJ, the live music, and the kind of what I do on Twitch here as well, obviously, and I think that really kind of solidified in the last couple of years with DJing on Twitch and streaming as well. I think pushing out, because the name of my Twitch stream is Matt Hart 3808. We can get back to 3808 if you want. But my name is in there. It's a Twitch handle. It's the music I write. So everything is like, if you hear the name Matt Hart, it conjures up this, and this, rather than, oh, I've heard of Combi Christ. They write music.
Yeah.
I've heard of this. So I don't think there's really any divergence. It really is just me creating music or DJing, and I happen to be doing it. And there's my name on a bill with
You're
with God Module or Grendel, and there's my name on the bottom. And I
you're
think it's
you're like you're like a large big chain supply store for industrial. Come down to Matt Hart. We've got your original music, your DJing, your Twitch streaming.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which one do you want today?
All right, now, so Vlad, if you're watching this, I now need a Matt Hart grocery store logo. Let's go.
Awesome.
So, I am really enjoying the history of the albums, but just knowing how long we could go into each and every one of them, I'm gonna skip forward a little bit, and
Hmm.
let's talk about the most recent one.
Sure.
And interestingly enough, it's called a part one, which makes me wonder, like, is it just that you have more music that fits this same like style and theming, or are we dealing with a concept album here?
You're definitely dealing with a concept album.
All right.
You're definitely dealing with a whole concept of what the music that I write has a whole kind of backstory and story to it. Even if the story isn't that detailed, in my mind, there is the story. We can talk about Below the Terror specifically. Yes, it is a part one. Yes, there will be a part two. Below the Terror is a story essentially about humanity digging below the surface, away from the surface, because the surface is an icy wasteland controlled by a machine overlord. And they're digging down, they're trying to find heat, they're trying to find warmth. It's the same thing. They're trying to find warmth and heat, and they're just trying. Excuse me. They're just trying to survive. The backstory is that the Chaos Rising trilogy is the rising is basically the war It's kind of the war of man versus machine, but it's the same time Chaos Rising is chaos being the machines. They completely destroy the world, and we kind of meet back up after Chaos Rising. We meet back up with humanity in the year 3808, which is where Terra 3808 comes in. The Red album.
Aha! And now we know what the 3808 and MATT HART 3808 is. Yeah, we got back to it, guys. We circled around.
We got back to it. But I mean, if you really want to know, 3808 came from Instagram. Just a side point for a second. I'll go back to the album.
Yeah.
But 3808, yes, it came from Instagram. It was when you create an Instagram page, it gives you like, oh, you can't have MATT HART because someone else has got MATT HART. Well, yeah, obviously, and it gives you a bunch of random numbers. And it gave me 3808, and I just loved how how it rolled off the tongue. 3808. 808 being being a music
drum
thing anyway.
Yep.
And 3808, it was a future. It was a four-digit future that could be, it's not so far from our future. Yeah, it's a couple of thousand years, but it's a future that I could envisage an apocalypse, a wasteland kind of being created. And
if we don't create the apocalypse in the next 50 years.
Well,
we're a little ahead schedule. We got to slow it down a bit, guys.
Yeah, exactly. And so Terra 3808 came out of that, and I named an album after Instagram. Well, yeah, kind of, and no, and it just became what it was. And I love the idea of 3808 being the year. So Terra 3808 was an album that is set in that year. More set at the beginning of the year, I guess. Just put it specifically, like I said, that I still don't really know the whole details of what's going on. I like to think I do because I transmit back from the year 3808 on my DJ shows.
The good news is that we can just forget that part of the conversation even happened. So anytime someone's like, "Oh, did you plan that?" The answer is yes, totally. Knew what was going to happen from the very first song. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. So Below the Terror is still set in 3808, but 3808 has become this year that is the infinite year, really. Like humanity stopped counting the years. We're stuck in the year 3808.
I got it.
It's basically 2020.
Yeah.
Yes, we really are stuck in the same loop. And so the war happened, and humanity Below the Terror now. The again, artwork by Mr. McNeely.
Oh, I love that you've got physical copies of everything. This is lovely.
It's nice to be able to show people that if you haven't ever seen it before, the artwork on it is brilliant. I love what he did with it. It fits exactly what you kind of expect from an industrial wasteland project.
Yeah,
I guess. And he created such good artwork for me. I will continue to use him because he knows exactly what my kind of idea is and where we're going with the concept. So yes, Below the Terror is a concept album. It's following the concept of this machine world, machine ruled world, and humanity surviving. And it's now we're below the terror. So I've got a concept that this is part one. This is the digging down. Part two will be more like the kind of the elongation of, or the more kind of solidifying of the world that they're creating down there.
Yeah. Creation of underground cities and whatnot.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Where we go after that, I don't know. So it could just be a two-part. But if you look at the Chaos Rising trilogy, we
have
some. Right?
We have an established thing here. So I'm always interested when any artist, writer, musician starts making chaos albums, especially in science fiction, because I have a huge love of science fiction and dystopian sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
We made the joke about 3808 being like 2020, the year that doesn't end. But are you just writing a dystopian story of, killer machines and people digging underground because it's cool? Or are there some current events or some things from your own life or the world that make it into this science fiction?
I think you being a colloquial I think you're always being influenced by what's around you. I'm highly influenced by the music and the DJing that I DJ, and life events and what's going on in the world definitely has an impact on what I write. I think Terra 3808 was possibly a reaction to things like Trump, things like Brexit. It's a heavier album, and this album, although I would call it a COVID album, it's got an almost lighter edge to it. It's more electronic. I was not able to be in my studio. I was away working for basically the whole of the pandemic. So I was away from my studio, away from my guitars really. So that's why a lot of the tracks are a lot more electronic, and maybe guitars are either an afterthought or they're not there. So I think we definitely take influence from what's going on. There's a couple of tracks on there that I was really kind of being away from home. It was quite a being away from my wife 5 days a week and only coming home at the weekend, or sometimes not even coming home for the weekend just because of where I was or whatever. I think I kind of got you start thinking things, overthinking things, and I think certainly there's a track on the album called Cathartic, and that was about things stressing me out and just getting into my head and just being kind of just imploding onto myself. But I think I write more for a story and more for what I want to write as my concept rather than what's going on. But there's certainly influence from the world around me on the music that I'm writing, even though maybe a lot of it could be subconscious. If I seen the world events about war in Ukraine and this kind of thing, it has an impact on you, and it a heartfelt impact. And do I always do drums when I'm like heavy music. Do I write something, or am I writing something that really has kind of has been influenced by world events, and certainly it does, no doubt about it.
So even if there aren't like direct metaphors or analogies in there, the lyrics that you're writing, the moods that you're in are still impacted by these events. Like,
yes. Yeah, definitely.
Below the Terra wouldn't have been what it is without the global pandemic, for instance.
Yeah. I mean, I just, when we don't live we'd love to think we live in a peaceful world. We don't live in a peaceful world. Terra 3808 was an album influenced off just the lack of peace and just the horridness of this world. And I think Below the Terra is a kind of a subconscious reaction to a pandemic where everyone goes and was holed up in their places, all this isolation and humanity kind of trying to isolate itself away from the world. So
and you're literally digging underground. You're digging further into the world as we're digging further into ourselves. That's man. Holding myself up in my apartment isn't enough. I'm going to hold myself under my apartment.
Yeah, deep down towards the core.
It's interesting too because there's this feeling of searching permeating this album. Then down into the core. You say searching warmth, searching heat. So. What were you actually like yourself? Is this just because of the general feelings of the pandemic and the feelings of a world growing even before the pandemic, growing further oppressive, that you, or were you actually searching for something yourself while coming up with this concept?
I think I have a problem, and that is that I sit down and I write music, and what comes out comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's influenced or not, I think the music just comes out. I know I haven't really answered that in a way that you're probably looking for,
No,
but
no,
I just
that's honestly that's still a big deal though, because that is a completely different way of writing than it used to be for you.
mm,
Because it feels like at the beginning, you were just letting what come out, but you seem to be like very purpose driven and like, okay, but that doesn't work, but that doesn't work, but that doesn't work. And now you're like, oh no, I'm just writing what comes, and I'm just taking it out and doing it.
hmm
It seems like you've gotten a lot more comfortable in your writing, and you don't necessarily need to force yourself to go any certain direction.
hmm definitely. I'd say almost all the way along, but even more so now because I recognize it. Um, the music that I'm writing, it needs to appeal to me. I need to like it. I'm the only one that I'm writing for, really. Um, yes, I want to fit it in so that other people will buy it. But if I make something that is EBM, if I make something that's industrial metal, if I make something that's techno, someone's going to like something on the record.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm not bothered about what comes out. It's just what I like to write. And writing at the time, because I'm influenced by, a sound or something going on. And, it's just, it is a case of just, this is what's coming out. And I might change it all in the end anyway. A techno track might end up having guitars on it and suddenly become a Rammstein track. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't have, I don't write for it to appeal to people, but I like it when it does, because it means it's like, okay, well, I'm doing something right here,
Yeah.
but you're digging what I'm doing, um,
I,
terrifying. Have you the track
do you
Terrifying?
do you,
It
do you realize the puns you've just been making though? Because you're digging what I'm doing and terrifying. Like I just want to point that out. Okay.
yeah, totally. um, but yeah, I mean, Terrifying. I wrote that really as because I was influenced by like the industrial bass movement that we've got kind of going on a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's all I did was talk the words, and the words are talked by someone who is a leader during the War of 3808, and telling them how terrifying the world is, but stay strong, and that it it was written while I was sitting on a bed during during one of my stretches of being away from home, and just a crazy little track that seemed to got very popular, just
Just kind of
and
came out of nowhere and whoop, people
yeah,
like
yeah,
it.
it really just came
Yeah.
out of nowhere. It was like, whoa, this is cool. I hope people like this, because this is different from. There's no guitars in it. It's not industrial metal.
So there's a great comment in chat from Slither 3808,
hmm
saying allowing the music to be honest and just spill into what it will be. And I think that's what you're talking about there though, because if you just if you're just honest, if you just write it as it comes to you and you let it out there, people are going to tap into that honesty. And the reason I was checking to see if there was any like real any sort of trying to like to push out a specific purpose is it's not very common that someone is writing not just one but several concept albums that weave together, but also just kind of letting it come out stream of consciousness like. And it's fascinating to me that you can manage to have both those things happen at the same time. That it just works.
Yeah, and I think that's. I mean, I ask you, do you think that's down to the fact that I'm an independent musician? Because I don't know the world of being on a label. I don't know how a label kind of influences the artist in a way of, no, you know, here's, you need to write, you know, a 12, 14 track album, but each track needs to sound like your sound. You can't write anything that's diverse off that. I kind of don't know that. I mean, I listen to a lot of albums that are on record labels, and sometimes the flow is really good, but the sound is very much their sound. You know,
Yeah,
you listen to a noise effects album, and each track individually, you put it on a dance floor, and you know the club is pumping, you know, that everyone's dancing. But you listen to it as a whole album, and it almost can become a little tedious because it's just the same.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because it works.
it works.
um, but I write because I'm an independent artist. You know, I don't have a label behind me. I have my wife who does my marketing, which is amazing. And I just put out the music that works for me, and what I'm writing, I'll put out. And I get that, you know, the singles that lead up to an album need to be the ones that are the kind of the tracks that would sound most like me, I think. You know, they've got electronics, they've got stompy beats, they've got guitars in them, and they've got, you know, trying to get a bit of vocal hook in that kind of thing. But there are other tracks on the album that don't sound like those tracks, and I hope people dig them. Um,
Well, I think that's even though you're not on a label. I think that because you spent so much time appreciating music, and as a DJ, like you very much are structuring this album like a DJ, where it's
mhm,
like, yeah, you have some like kick them right in the face sets, right, songs right at the beginning of the set to get everybody on the floor, and then you start experimenting with it more to change up the groove so it doesn't get samey,
mhm,
and uh, the advantage of doing it on an album versus in a club is you can even get further away from the standard four on the floor dance track, because you don't have to worry about are people dancing to this, just are people enjoying it.
yep,
But it's still being written like a DJ, I feel, because yeah, the journey that you're going on, and I'm not saying that you're crafting each and every individual track like that, but once you've got the tracks out, it's like you put them in just the order that they needed to be in to take folks on that journey.
mhm. Oh, definitely. Um, you know, I would wholeheartedly say I'm highly influenced um, by being a DJ in the music that I write, because I want to write tracks that people want to play and want to listen to or want to hear on the dance floor.
Well,
Um,
but even
but
before that, you're writing tracks you want to hear.
yeah, yeah,
And
but I do love club tracks as well. So it's
yeah,
like, you know,
works perfectly.
yeah, exactly.
So I guess, I've really gotten into more of your writing style and your writing process here, but it still seems like it's been luck and fortune that, or and perhaps the fact that no one knows where the story is going, including you, that you've still been able to weave this into one full story. But
Hmm.
I guess my question is that okay? You sit down to write the next album, you write what comes out, and all you seem to be writing about are like subway trains in 1996 or whatever. That seems to be all you can think to write about. Do you stop doing the 3808 story for a while, or do you put that under a different name other than Matt Hart? What happens if all of a sudden the story stops for a minute, but you're still creating music?
I think because the concept has been created where um, it's so far in the future, and yes, there was, you know, in nearly 2,000 years, there's a hell of a lot of technological advances, so much so that my DJ show um, is um, is sent back in time, to
I love that.
2020,
I love
2021,
that.
22. And the concept of that is it adds into the story, but the music that I write is here and the DJing is here, but they are two worlds. And although, you know, you should never fuck with the timeline, um, me as a DJ on Twitch is a DJ who DJs once or twice every day during the year 3808, to back to 2020, 21, 22, on a Monday evening at 9 p.m. UK time on MATT HART 3808 on Twitch. In that I send that back. That's me as a DJ going back in time every day using the transmission portal.
Yeah.
And but we have that capability in 3808. So what I can do with that is basically infinite. If we can DJ from there, why can't I write music that is, swing from the 50s, but write it with an industrial metal edge, and write it as someone who is a stand-up comedian, in a club.
And who's to say
I
that
could
the
literally
next
write
album,
anything.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point too. If you change your sound, if you change what's going on, who's to say this isn't a prequel to what happened before? Which I think is just great. You've got this brilliant concept, but you've also left yourself enough room. You're not hanging yourself with your own rope, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Below the Terror, it really is an album that tells the story as it is. There are machines on the surface. It's an icy wasteland. Humanity is trying to survive. They're digging down to the core. Basically, society is completely decimated. The head fuck of being in this world is completely cathartic. The surface is completely, frozen. It's absolute zero. And eventually people do just want to have a party as well. So as much as this shit is all going on, they can still rave and, have the last rave that, that they party to. So you do have that idea of there's the story. There's all the there's all the tracks. And that's what's happened in this moment in 3808. Or what is going on in this moment, but that moment a little bit further down the line, where is humanity going to be, and what are they doing, and what the stories of individuals. I had the idea before the pandemic happened. I released one track called Trialith, and it was meant to be a singular track that was going to be. It actually even has the little title on it, Tales of Terror. It's the one track that I released that isn't part of Chaos Rising, and it's not part of Terra 3808. It's post Terra 3808. It was meant to be an interim, and I was going to write a bunch of tracks that they all like Tales of Terror. They were stories of what was going on at the time. We went into a pandemic. I was able to write a lot more, so I ended up putting an album together about it and releasing the singles from it. But those tales of terror are still there, not written as such.
Right.
But the idea of those tales of terror are always there, and some of those tales ended up on Below the Terror, and some of them will end up on Part 2 or a new album. So I think it's. I think I have lots of scope to be able to continue writing in the vein, but if I want to step aside from it, then
you can.
Then I can. Yeah, I think it will always have a sci-fi feel to it, and it will always be in and around the world of. But it might be, I think that's the thing. That even on Terra 3808, there's a track called Gone to Shit, which isn't industrial metal. It's an EBM track. And I think that track, to me, was a kind of standout track on that album because it was so vastly different from the sound I was really going for, that the heavy kind of guitars, sludge, industrial that I was doing, to a completely electronic track that was very kind of Nights Ebb influenced. And I think I can always do that.
Yeah.
If I want to write something that I like, I'll go with it. So.
Yeah. So we've got some great comments about this discussion in chat. Mafia Girl says, fuck with the timeline, in all caps.
Of course.
And let's see. I'm going to say this wrong, but Stepan Razar, the timeline was destroyed before MATT HART 3808 got a hold of it.
That's
DJ
true.
Recovery Rate says DJs are natural time travelers after all, which is very
Yeah.
true. Oh man, just so many things. It's just flying by me. And yeah, Super Razars and saying that the timeline is already fucked, so go for it, Matt. Mafia Girl said, "Wait, isn't this the story of Wall-E? Or is it Wall-E Matt's future?"
I'm just a robot living on a world that is completely desolate.
So
Ranty lives in a spaceship.
obviously, we're gonna have to have you back on the show at some point because we still have so many things that we could talk about. But so Below the Terra, out now. You already said it once, but where can people find your music again?
You can find all my music at matthart.bandcamp.com, and that's Heart, H-A-R-T, not H-E-A-R-T, E-A-R-T. Yeah, matthart@bandcamp.com.
Musician, not professional speller.
Exactly.
Yes. And you also DJ on Twitch.
Yes,
you
I
said
do.
it was Monday nights, 9 p.m. England time?
Yeah, UK time. That's
okay.
right.
All right, and that is Matt Hart.
Matt Hart, 3808.
3808. Awesome. So, Matt, is there anything else that you want to drop? Oh, there is one thing we have to drop on the crowd before we go because you made me promise. All right. So, when you released your latest single, the rework by Rotersand, which
Yes.
actually got you onto the DAC, so congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I made a comment about Matt Hart and Rotersand being like the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup of industrial. and you told me that I had to bring that up in the interview. So why do I have to bring up Reese's Peanut Butter Cups in the interview?
So right when I started DJing, was right at the time I was growing a beard because we were in lockdown, and the beard came off, but the moustache stayed. And in May 2020, I had a moustache and I was DJing on Twitch. And you probably noticed me do it a little bit, but I've got better at doing it, and that's actually not touching my tash. Slither3808, who is my wife up in the chat, decided that she was going to tell the chat that she told me, as she had, if you don't stop playing with your moustache, I'm going to put peanut butter in it because I can't stand peanut butter. So that's where the peanut butter jokes come from, and I'm sure some of the people in the chat right now remember that back in the day. So yeah, I never actually got peanut butter in my tash. I eventually got mustache wax, and I tend to leave it alone and put it in before a show, and then it looks fine, and I don't keep twizzling
All right,
it.
so you realize now for Christmas or your birthday or some holiday, I have to get you peanut butter scented mustache wax, right?
Oh, gross.
Because I'm just that evil.
No, don't do it.
It's fine. Everyone in chat also saying that they don't like peanut butter. I will have all your peanut butter. That's fine. It's more for me. Now that I drink very rarely and I don't I'm on a much more restrictive diet. Peanut butter is like my vice. It is my drug.
Fair enough. If you like it, you like it. It's like Marmite.
Yeah.
Either you like it or you hate it. I hate it too.
I cannot stand Marmite. We are in agreement on that one. Marmite, Vegemite, all the mites.
Yeah.
We can blow them up with dynamite for all I care.
And I see the comment from Slither38 saying the punishment. Yeah, so if I was caught twizzling my moustache, the chat called me out on it, and I had to eat a Reese's peanut butter cup. That was the actual peanut butter cup. So yeah, I had a whole packet that I went through. I eventually kind of ended up liking them, but I still wouldn't eat them or choose to eat them. But
But if someone
chocolate was fine.
If someone puts a gun to your head and hands you a thing of Reese's peanut butter cups, you'll be okay. You'll live to see another day.
Yeah, I will definitely live to see another day. Yeah, I'm more resilient than that.
Well, Matt, did you have anything? I kind of jumped over you. Was there anything else that you wanted to grace us with before we send you on your merry way back to 3808?
Well, I can go on and on. I know we've passed the hour mark now. Yes, so I've just had the Absolute Zero Rhodesan Classic Ride Remix rework just come out. Go stream it on Spotify. It's doing pretty well there. If you like it, go buy it on Bandcamp. If you want to keep it in your collection, it is in the second week of being #1 on the DAC, which is amazing, crazy. I don't know how this happened, to be honest, but yeah, I guess people digging the remix. The original was a fun track to write that I had written for a long time, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I just went into the studio to do the vocals, and it kind of the vocal hook that you hear in that is what kind of came out. But yeah, I mean, I've got 3 remixes coming out very, very shortly. I did a remix for Jim Davies. Jim Davies being ex-guitarist of The Prodigy and was in Pitch Shifter as well. That's called the track's called To the Poison. No, not To the Poison. Choose Your Poison. That's coming out really soon on the 5th of August. And then Wydan, aggressive, harsh electro-industrial act. I did a remix for them that comes out on the 12th of August, and I've got a remix coming out on EP for 40 Octaves Below. And some of those have been done for a little while. Some of them are more recent. But yeah, I've got another 3 that I'm working on and that have been sent out as well. So Remix World is what I'm kind of into right now, doing a lot of. And I think when we come into autumn, I'll probably start writing my original stuff again. I'm playing a show up in Glasgow and Edinburgh. I'm DJing in Edinburgh on the 18th of August. I'm DJing and playing a solo show up in Glasgow on the 20th of August. And that's about it. You know, I'm all over social media, so go follow me there. That'll be great. Thanks.
Awesome.
And I think most of the people in the chat know me anyway, but I know your stuff goes up on YouTube to your followers there as well, which is cool. So if you do catch me there, I am on YouTube as well. I do have a page there. But yeah, go and stream on Spotify. I never really send people there, but I know that the Spotify numbers do help along the line, especially kind of being seen as an artist with plays under your belt, I suppose. Right. If anyone wants to get in contact with us through any of the social media channels, we are doing #Street Team right now, which is we're sending out like bunch of flyers to people. I've got like 10,000 flyers, and we're just sending them out in a post. So if you want a bunch of flyers to fly to your local shops and clubs and bars and that kind of thing, that would be awesome. Just get in contact. I think that's about it.
Awesome.
I am one more thing. I am crowdfunding a remix by Aesthetic Perfection on my Twitch channel.
Yeah.
I really want him to do one, and he's happy to do it. I just crowdfunding on there. So come along to the show on Monday. Find the donation link if you want to kind of get your name on the record. I think it's like £20, and you get your name on the single release, and then it will go on to the CD release eventually when I do the Below the Terra remix album at some point on CD. So but yeah, I think that's about it. And Pat, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh no, this has been.
I've waffled on for an hour and 10 minutes almost now.
No man, there was some fantastic discussion there about like the way that your music writing has changed. Though I'm really into this, and of course I'm a sci-fi nut, so that's always awesome. And also, since you mentioned donations, one more time to thank EBM Worldwide for sponsoring this interview. Again, a partnership of DJs, fans, promoters, and producers who meet together to support the scene, charity, LGBTQIA+, animal welfare, and other causes. You can check them out on facebook.com/EBM Worldwide and get information on the Discord if you're a DJ and want to join along. So thanks very much, Matt. Thank you. Just this incredibly active chat. You guys have been awesome. If you are watching live, stick around, because up next we have the after party. I'm going to start with a MATT HART track and then make a beat match mix from there. Nobody knows where it's going to go, not even me. And of course, Jasper's already sitting in his perch working on some art, and will continue to draw live on stream for the first hour or so. And if you're watching YouTube, Matt has already mentioned he has a YouTube channel. Check it out, and then go listen to some Matt Hart on Spotify, Bandcamp, the music platform of your choice. For now, Matt, go get some sleep.
I will do. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, cheers, Pat. Thanks so much.